Hi everyone and welcome to the channel for Caribbean and African Affairs. Before we begin, please like, comment, and subscribe. Today I want to discuss with you the topic of why Black people aren't unified, a rather disappointing topic. It seems that Caribbeans, Africans, and Black Americans seem to dislike and distrust one another. I've heard from all sides, and all sides feel judged and alienated from another group. Now, to set things straight, Black is a skin color. You can be Black and have a different ethnicity or nationality, but you are still Black. The sooner we realize this, the sooner we can move forward as a people, because this is one of the major roots of the problem. Now, I was blessed with the opportunity to go to the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. As I was walking through the museum, I realized that this museum clearly answers the question of why Black people aren't unified and why minorities as a whole aren't unified. In the museum, there was a section that discussed interracial couples that dated back to the 1600s to 1700s. The enslaved Africans were taken to the Chesapeake regions, which are now Virginia and Maryland. The ideas of race and class were less defined during the time, so enslaved Africans, European servants, and Native Americans worked alongside each other, socialized, intermarried, rebelled, and ran away with each other. Slave owners feared this alliance and actually further segregated the groups, giving European servants and Native Americans more rights and enslaving Africans forever. In 1676, Bacon's Rebellion occurred. There was an armed rebellion led by Nathaniel Bacon, a colonist of the Virginia colony. Black and poor white workers demanded that the governor at the time opened up new lands for settlement, ended Native American raids, and regulated servant abuse. The rebellion was short-lived, and it led to the limiting of European servitude, but this further left the enslaved Africans with less freedom. The Europeans gained new rights, and the Europeans lost even further what they didn't have. Looking back at this, you can see that the slave owners already were trying to create a divide between Black people and other races, and they succeeded, because we still see that to this day and within our own community. There were also free Black communities which existed as early as the 1500s. These communities still faced racism, inequality, and laws that limited their freedom. However, these same free Black people developed ways to survive and maintain their freedom by establishing institutions and churches and standing in solidarity with those who were still enslaved. Now, this was a pleasant surprise for me to hear, because Black people were still working together to build themselves up and build an infrastructure, while never forgetting those who were enslaved, and they continued to support them. Nowadays, many Black people of all nationalities and ethnicities are pretty selfish with the mindset of, if I could do it by myself, then so should you. Imagine if every successful Black person remembered where they came from, remembered who they were, remembered what they struggled with, and went back and helped that community. Look at Oprah. Oprah is a descendant of enslaved people, and when she first went to Africa, she was not welcomed. But she knew the good she could do, and she went back, and now she has a boarding school for girls. She puts Black women through college, and all of a sudden, African people are accepting her. This is an important lesson for the Black community. No one else is supporting us, so let us support each other. We may claim we have different cultures, but one thing all Black people have is their divisive nature, which does come from the enslavement period. Now I'm going to switch gears for a little bit and go back into the history of things. Now, the Haitian Revolution went on from 1791 to 1804, led by Toussaint Louverture. Now, this was the first Black nation. Haiti was the first Black nation to declare independence. And while this was a huge victory for Haiti and for Black people as a whole, Because many nations did follow in Haiti's footsteps, in America the slave owners grew more fearful and cracked down even harder on the enslaved Africans to try and prevent any rebellions in America. This led to even further brutal treatment. Now time passed, the Civil War happened, the Reconstruction period happened from 1865 to 1876, where African Americans were making economic progress, electing officials to local, state, and national governments, and overall building better lives for themselves. But when the troops actually left, this is the Civil War troops left, and no longer exerted some control over the states, the white Southerners used violence and intimidation to undermine the progress that African Americans were making and further kicked African Americans back to square one. I mean, there was Black Wall Street. Overall, fear and intimidation and division is historically key in keeping us down. The goal was to leave African Americans unsure of when they may become victims again. Now, taking a look at all of this, we should be able to better understand where this division came from. Every time we take steps forward, we are brutally kicked right back down. Every time we start working together, someone starts the division all over again. It used to be an outside source, and today it is also psychologically ingrained in us as a Black people. What can we do about this? Educate ourselves, because if we don't take it upon ourselves to do so, we are as much to blame for where we are. Typically, no one else will care about our history as much as we do. The fact that some of us don't care enough is appalling. Shame on us. We should embrace our different cultures and ethnicities. To shut down some things. This whole African versus Caribbean versus Black American thing is ridiculous. Realize now that African American history is African history, is Caribbean history. African people of different regions ended up in the Caribbean and the Americas and shared their languages, their culture, and their food to develop what is now African American and Caribbean culture today. Far too often, I hear non-African Americans who live in America stating that they would rather help their country rather than the Black people in America because people in America have more going for them. To me, it doesn't matter. Black is Black. Help out your brothers and sisters. When we are unified, we can do amazing things. Yes, you can have a different ethnicity, but that doesn't matter when you have the same race. Let's spur each other on. Thank you so much for listening to this. I'm very interested to see or hear your comments. Please like and subscribe again, and I'll see you in the next video.